What's up, Totem Pole Nation? This is Lambo and Matt's World of Sports back at you with another episode. This one, we're getting into our preview and predictions of the NCAA Week 11 slate, as well as the latest on the Michigan cheating scandal. The Big Ten has informed Michigan of possible consequences. We'll get into that and more. Thank you to Sideline Sports Network. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and if you want to help the boys out, show some support with the merch. The link is in the ticker. It's totempolenation.com.
Gentlemen, it is a big week for college football. It's almost done, which is very, very sad. It's week 11. Also, Michigan, they fired the inside man about a week ago. And there's some point in time where Michigan, the Big Ten Conference, is probably going to inform Michigan with some type of disciplinary action. Now, there was some people with opinions on ESPN talking about they should be banned from the college football playoff. I don't agree with that far. I think that's kind of outrageous. Maybe if they suffered any disciplinary action, they'll probably get a fine. They'll probably maybe not be in a bowl game. Worst case scenario, I'm not sure. Or maybe Harbaugh gets suspended again, like he did this year with the whole hamburger situation, which I think that was pretty stupid. I guess that comes down to that. What do you think of the possible disciplinary action and also the preview of Michigan and Penn State? It will cause a lot of distractions. Obviously, Penn State is at home against Michigan. Of course, J.J. McCarthy has been the most consistent quarterback in all of college football, or one of them. Not just he's not the best, but he's one of the best. We just don't talk about him enough because Michigan has not played a very, very legit schedule. I'm taking Michigan to beat Penn State. I don't remember the last time Penn State's ever beat Michigan. And I understand Penn State is 8-1, but with Drew Allar, he's with 20 touchdowns and one pick. Their offense stalled against Ohio State. And I have a feeling, even though they're at home, they have a great defense, but Michigan will win the line of scrimmage. What is your thoughts on this game? And what do you think of the disciplinary action? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so the Big Ten issued a formal notice of potential disciplinary action against the Wolverines. So that was them warning them that they might be doing something, but everything that we've heard so far is that they have a good amount of concrete evidence that they were breaking the rules. The NCAA revealed its investigation findings to the Big Ten, and among the disciplinary action the league has considered is a multi-game suspension for Coach Jim Harbaugh. That is not obviously the final decision, but it is something the NCAA and the Big Ten have both considered and are comfortable enough to do it publicly. Yahoo reported that the NCAA has not found evidence of Harbaugh being directly involved with the alleged advanced scouting, but we know that it was going on. So, in my mind, you're the top dog, right? You are the general. You run this team. And there's just no way in my head, and again, this is all alleged, but in my opinion, I don't see how he didn't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that a guy would be on the payroll of the team and the head coach not know why he's getting paid. And I understand he was only getting paid like $60,000 a year or whatever, which in terms of coach salaries and stuff isn't super. He could very easily have been it's on a need to know basis, and I don't need to know. All I know is you're an analyst for us, and you are only getting paid $60,000, so it's not really hurting our pockets in either way. Still, if that's the case, I think that it's more likely than not that he had knowledge, regardless of what Yahoo reporting is saying right now. Banning them from the playoff, I don't think would be the way to go. I mean, we know that the NCAA moves slow when it comes to final punishments and stuff. So like the Big Ten could easily bring their own punishment in and say, you know, like not let them play in the Big Ten championship or something like that. That would mess up their college football playoff stuff. But the NCAA itself, I mean, we haven't seen them take a scandal and bring it to full fruition with punishments and everything roll out within a year ever. So I don't think that that's going to start here. I think that whatever punishment we see is going to be a next year thing. And if that's the case, I don't see how banning them from the college football playoff, like after a probable suspension for Harbaugh and after the firing of Stallions down there anyways, I don't see how that would be the right way to go about it. But I don't know what they would do anyways. So when it comes to that, I don't know. It's a lot of, I mean, it's pretty locked in that they did it, I think. It's just at this point, how much did Harbaugh know about it? And that's, you know, where the punishment for him would really come into question. For this game in particular, like you said, it is a home game for Penn State. Their only loss is to Ohio State. But like you pointed out, Drew Aller struggled heavily against Ohio State. And the Michigan defense is just as good, if not better than Ohio State's. I don't know if I'd say they're better, but they're just as good. They allow 5 points a game or something like that. But on the same note, Penn State did score 31 on Iowa, who is fourth in the country in points allowed at like 13.7. Neither team has had a strong schedule so far. So like the positives that we've seen from Penn State are similar to the positives we've seen from Michigan. It's just we haven't seen it really against a good team. And the difference is Penn State has played a good team, and when they did, they got embarrassed. Like you mentioned, J.J. McCarthy is not Kyle McCord. So Kyle McCord for Ohio State threw the ball all over this Penn State defense. He didn't take the top off of it, but he didn't put the ball in danger's way. He wasn't the reason that drives would stall, stuff like that. You know, like the first half wasn't his best, but he really turned up in the second. And he made that game his own. He was a big reason they won. Same defense, way better quarterback. J.J. McCarthy is definitely a step or two above Kyle McCord. So I expect him to have success against a really good defense in Penn State. I just don't think it's enough. I think it's low scoring. I got Michigan 24-17.
All right. Next game, Alabama versus Kentucky. Alabama's been on a roll. Jalen Moore has been very, very consistent. He has proved us wrong. Alabama has won, 7 straight games since the loss to Texas earlier in the year. The defense has been very, very efficient. The run game with Jace McClellan, it's improved. But obviously, Jalen Moore has been, getting the rushing stuff as well, especially when you have a quarterback that can run. Devin Leary, I think he's the transfer from NC State. He's done okay for Kentucky, but Kentucky is just 3-3 in conference. They got blown out by Georgia a couple weeks ago. I have no confidence in this Kentucky team. I just don't have no confidence. I'm going to take Alabama. Kentucky might make this game very competitive, but Alabama will eventually pull off the win. But this is a game for Alabama that they cannot take the opponent very easily towards late in the season. But I'm going to take Alabama in that defense way better than the Kentucky offense and that Kentucky defense. After Will Levis got drafted, I mean, they hadn't really got better. Like, they still look the damn same to me.
Yeah, I mean, Saban has the boys dialed in. They're rolling. Milroe has gotten better every game. He's not putting the ball in harm's way nearly as much as we saw him do it earlier in the year. And he's making the right decisions when it comes to getting out of the pocket, being able to run. We saw him 3 rushing touchdowns last week. And I think that just goes to or speaks to his progression as a quarterback, being able to make the right decisions. He's not forcing passes that he doesn't have to force. He's not, putting himself in positions to where he's, pushing himself beyond his limits. And I think that was kind of happening. You heard Saban talk about it on the Pat McAfee show a lot, about how much he trusted the development and what he needed to see to continue to trust in Milroe. And he's done nothing but, prove Saban right that he's going to get the ship back straight. And that's what he's done. Kentucky has dropped 3 of their past 4 SEC games. And the one win that they got was against Mississippi State, who's 1-5 in the division. I don't really see this game being close, say, after early third quarter. Like, I agree with you. The first half could be competitive, but I don't think this is a close game after the third quarter.
All right. Virginia Tech versus Boston College. It'll be kicked off on the ACC Network. Thomas Castellanos from Boston College. He's been the heart and soul of that team. Now, Boston College eventually struggled at the beginning of the season. They got blown out by Florida State, and they came back. But since November 30th, they have won 5 straight games. All of them have been very, very close. They pulled away with Georgia Tech by like 2 scores, obviously. But Virginia Tech's won 3 of the last 5. Their only bad loss was to Louisville last week and to Florida State. Obviously, Virginia Tech is on the road again. They finished off the season with 3 of the last 4 road games, especially with the Louisville game, then this game, then at home against NC State, and then on the road again against UVA. So 3 out of the last 4 games on the road is very tough. They're on the road again at Boston College. Kyron Jones had a very one of his worst games we've seen, but Virginia Tech broke down in all phases of the game. Now, this is 50-50 whether Virginia Tech wins or Boston College wins. Now, Boston College is not a team you want to sleep on, especially at home. They competed with Florida State until the very end. It got to the point where they had too many penalties. I'm going to take Virginia Tech to win this one. I think they will bounce back with confidence, but they have to start off fast against Boston College. If they start off slow, like they did against Louisville, the game will be over by the time they had the first score. I'm just really not that confident in the defense because they got really blown. Boston College is able to run the ball. They have to. The quarterback's literally the leading rusher. So if you don't stop the quarterback from running the ball, it's going to be a long day. Still going to take Tech, but Thomas Castellanos, or whatever his last name is, I forgot to pronounce it correctly. Excuse me for that. He's a very dangerous quarterback, but I'm still going to take Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I'm rolling with the Hokies as well. So obviously Drones had the worst game he's had last week, but in the same breath, you have to mention that he had absolutely no time to throw the ball. That's with his scrambling as well. He couldn't stay in the pocket for more than a second and a half, maybe. And in this offense, that's enough to get to your first read and maybe make a throw before the read is even developed. He's only thrown 2 interceptions this year. One was against Rutgers in his first start when 2 receivers ran to the same spot. So someone ran a wrong route. It brought 3 defenders to the throw. So again, it is on him because he made the throw, but I also don't put all of that blame on him for that one. And then last week, the interception was a great tip from the defender jumping around our receiver to tip it into his teammates' hands. So, both of his turnovers in the air this year, I don't really attribute to him, which gives me some confidence as well as the fact that he's dominated the ACC opponents he's played. Every conference game this year, Drones has played the best that we've seen him, and it's gotten better every time. But you have to look at this Boston College team and not underestimate them because they can move the ball. They can score. They have played kind of a soft schedule, but that's kind of the same for most ACC teams. Virginia Tech is 8th in the country in sacks. Antoine Power-Ryland, our transfer from Florida, is 6th in the country with 9 by himself. We're number 1 in the ACC. Like I mentioned, 8th in the country. We have the 7th best pass defense based on yards allowed. But obviously in this game, that's not the focus. We have the 4th worst run defense in the ACC, where Boston College has the best running game in the ACC. That's going to be the challenge. We're going to need to contain the quarterback run and not let him be the reason that we lose. But then you go to the other side of the ball. we have very similar run defenses. Like I mentioned, we're fourth worst, they're third worst. We've got two guys that can run the ball like crazy in Drones and Tootin. And then also Malachi Thomas as a running back too has been getting more and more snaps as well. His yards per carry is close to 5, if not north of 5. So, I mean, we've got guys that can, really hurt this defense. It comes down to our defense. Boston College doesn't, they're pretty average when it comes to pass rush, when it comes to sacks. They have one top 5 guy in the ACC, but, that's just him. It's not the full D line like we saw against Louisville. So I'm not as nervous as I was going into last week. And obviously I had every reason to be nervous last week and we got our asses beat. This one, I'm not as shaky just because of the way we've seen Kyron play ACC opponents that aren't, just worlds better talent wise. Like obviously the number 13 team in the country, Louisville, is just on a different level than us when it comes to talent. I don't think Boston College is. It was an ugly game last year, but we handled them at home. It was ugly, but we won pretty comfortably. So I don't think that this team gets exposed like they did last week. I like Virginia Tech. I like it in a close one. It's like 28-24.
All right, next game, Arizona versus Colorado. 2:00 kickoff with the Pac-12 network. Arizona has been very competitive. Now, Jed Fish is the head coach. He's in his third year. Arizona was kind of like Colorado 2 years ago. Colorado last year was 1-11 in 2022, and Arizona was 1-11 in Jed Fish's first year. Right now, Arizona's at 6-3, so they improved one win from what they had last year because last year Arizona was 5-7. Arizona has very surprised most teams in college football. I thought they had a chance to beat USC at 3 overtimes just because that defense was just god awful. But I mean, that's not the case. Now they've beaten UCLA, they beat Oregon State, and they beat Washington State. The only loss was USC by 2 points, Washington by 7 points, and then Mississippi State by 7 points. So they lost to good teams, but they're not getting blown out. Now they're playing a Colorado team who's lost who's dropped the last 5 games, and Colorado's awful offensively, defensively. Just they break it down everywhere. In this game, I'm going to go ahead and take Arizona. I'm very, very confident in Arizona's run game. Like I said, Shiloh Sanders is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in all of college football. He's still putting up great numbers with only 3 interceptions. He has 2,800 yards, but it's just that Arizona defensive line is going to cause Colorado off the line a lot of problems. I trust Noah Fitta, their quarterback for Arizona, a freshman. He's been very, very good and consistent. Colorado also did just change play calls, so Pat Sherman is the offensive coordinator going forward. So, like I said, you've been saying it. If Colorado keeps going over these slow starts, they're going to lose. That's why Colorado lost 4 of the last 5 games. They hadn't won a game in 1 month as of today, which they beat Arizona State barely by 3 points. So I'm going to go ahead and take Arizona. Until Colorado shows improvement, I won't not be picking them the rest of the way.
Yeah, I wanted to think that this was the game that Colorado could sneak out, with the remaining schedule. The spread is 10.5. I don't think that they lose by that much, but I am going to go with Arizona. Colorado they can't run the ball. They can't pass block. And Arizona's averaging 2.5 sacks per game. So I feel like the backfield is going to be busy in a negative way for Shedeur and this offense. Colorado's pass offense is obviously great against a weak secondary in Arizona, but their secondary is worse than Arizona's is. And Arizona's offense isn't anything to, turn an eye to. Obviously, we saw what they did against USC, and they just fired their DC over there. But when it comes to comparing defenses, USC and Colorado aren't that far apart there either. So points are going to be scored. I do think the backfield is going to be busy in a negative way for Shedeur and the Colorado offense. The only chance they have in this game is to produce turnovers on defense, which, to their credit, as a bad defense, they have produced turnovers. They've got two DBs with 3 interceptions apiece. So like they've got talent back there. They've also, a couple guys that have 2 interceptions, 1 interception. Like they've got guys that have turned the ball over. It's just the defense as a whole is weak. I think Arizona wins this one by like 45-40.
So I might give you like 27-21, kind of like the Oregon State game. I don't know if they can score 45, but we'll see. Next game, Miami versus Florida State. This is a game you must watch out for. Both teams in the state of Florida. We did recruiting videos on both of these teams, and it got a lot of views. It popped up. Ladies and gentlemen, Florida State is number 14 in the nation. Miami Hurricanes have lost 3 of the last 5 games. They lost to Georgia Tech, which UNC lost to Georgia Tech as well. They lost to UNC, and they lost to NC State. They only put up 6 points against NC State. Wow. They beat Clemson, and they only beat Clemson and UVA in overtime the last 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to take Florida State in this game. Now, Miami has some weapons. They have some guys. They have receivers. I'm trusting Keon Coleman and Trey Benson. Miami has a great run game. They can run the ball when they need to, and Henry Parrish, who is a junior. But it just comes down – the reason why Miami's losing games is because it's coming down to turnovers. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke has 11 interceptions of the year, which is god bad. And you got a 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions for Tyler Van Dyke. I guess he was hurt a couple weeks ago. He should be back this week. And Jordan Travis only has 2 interceptions of the year. I'm trusting Jordan Travis over Tyler Van Dyke. So I'm going to go with Florida State. And that defense is hell a lot better than Miami's defense, especially if you're giving up a lot of big plays, and especially that game against Georgia Tech where they didn't run the ball. That really messed up the momentum. That really messed up the team's chemistry. I mean, that's just god awful. I'm taking Florida State. I'm not confident in Tyler Van Dyke. He's going to turn the ball over. Jordan Travis, he only has 2 interceptions a year. I'm trusting Jordan Travis. Go Florida State.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Florida State as well. And for really all the same reasons. Like you mentioned, their losses, UNC is not a bad loss, but NC State and Georgia Tech are not losses that this Miami team should have fell victim to. Obviously, they have good wins like Texas A&M, but that win seems lesser and lesser every week. And then, their 2 most recent wins, overtime against UVA and then overtime in Clemson. So really the only positive we've seen in the past month plus of football is that win over Clemson, which is really the only reason I think people would give them a chance in this game. But like you mentioned, Van Dyke has been turning the ball over when ball security at the beginning of the year and up until a couple weeks ago was a strong suit of him. He only had a few turnovers, and then he just started slinging interceptions, and I do understand that Florida State played kind of down to their competition last week versus Pitt, but this is a home game. I think they bounce back, and I agree with you when it comes to just talent for talent matching up. I'm taking Florida State 100 times out of 100 in this game. So give me the Seminoles.
All right, Utah versus Washington. This game will be on Fox. A lot of great games going on. Now, Utah, they got blown out by Oregon 2 weeks ago. They blew out Arizona State 55-3, and they lost to Oregon State 21-7. Washington is undefeated. They beat USC, which I predicted. Understanding their defense isn't that great, but USC did fire the defensive coordinator, obviously. In this game, Michael Penix Jr. is one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. Bryson Bars has been okay. He's been named and started the rest of the way. We're not sure when Cam Rising is going to come back.
Next year.
Like I said, Washington next year. Yeah, well, yeah. Washington has a great receiver in Rome Odunze. He's their leading receiver. He's a junior. If he wants to come out, he'd probably be a high pick in the NFL draft if he wants to come out this year. And also with um, the run game is consistent when it needs to be. It's very, very effective. In this game, with Dylan Johnson at running back, he's a junior as well. I'm going ahead and I'm going to go take Washington to win this game. As much as I like Utah, the way Utah got blown out by Oregon, I'm not really confident they're going to hold that defense against Washington when Washington beat Oregon. So I'm going to go ahead and take Washington. I'm taking the best quarterback in college football this year. Like I said, Michael Penix Jr. has always been better than Caleb Williams. Just nobody really talked about him until this year, just because we disrespected the Pac-12.
I mean, Caleb Williams was in the Pac-12 last year too. But I agree. Michael Penix.
Well, I mean, when he was in.
Yeah, I hear you.
I was saying when he was in Oklahoma.
I understand. This Washington team, I think, is, they're going to have to perform against a really good defense in Utah, but this isn't a home game where, Utah traditionally plays better. But the last time we saw them play a team of this caliber was at home against Oregon, a team that Washington beat, and they got their asses whooped. So I'm pretty comfortable going Washington here. I was rolling with Utah for the first half of the season, but the wheels are kind of falling off. The quarterback situation is just unfortunate. Obviously, Cam Rising is going to be medically redshirted this year, so he can play next year. He's not going to touch the field this year. But he's been the best teammate you can be. He's coaching up both Nate Johnson and Barnes, but like you said, Barnes is going to be the starter the rest of the way. I don't have too much confidence in that though, just because we've seen him, he was named the starter earlier in the year and he got replaced by Nate Johnson for 2 or 3 games because he threw the ball at a 30% rate against a team that they were easily better than. He threw the ball 30% for the first half and he got subbed out and he was benched for the next 2 weeks. So where he has had, good moments that you think this guy's okay, he can definitely be, part of the reason that this team wins. He gives me no confidence against Washington.
All right, next game, Tennessee versus Missouri. This is a game to watch out for as well. Missouri had a very close loss against Georgia. It was very, very competitive towards the end. Tennessee, they lost to Alabama, but they played a little soft schedule. They beat UConn 59-3. They're a basketball school. So is Tennessee. They're very good at basketball. We've both said that Joe Milton hasn't really been the quarterback that he was last year, despite him only having 4 interceptions. His completion percentage could be, his throws, his inaccuracy could affect him in certain parts of the game. With Wright as the running back for Tennessee, they can run the ball very, very effectively. The passing game is great as well. I'm going to go ahead and take Missouri to win this game. It's not really an upset. I like Brady Cook over Joe Milton. And Missouri can really, really throw the ball under Luther Burden III, who was a sophomore, who's basically their leading receiver. He almost has 1,000 yards receiving in just 10, 11 games, which is, great with 7 touchdowns. I'm going to go ahead and take Missouri at home. They beat Kansas State earlier in the year. I get it. But, their only losses was the LSU by 10 and then Georgia by 9. So, I'm very confident taking Missouri to beat Tennessee. And I know Sarah Blake Cheek wouldn't like that, but I don't really care. I like Missouri.
Yeah, I'm going with Missouri in this one as well. Tennessee has turned into a run-first team, which isn't that surprising considering how, vocal a lot of people have been about Joe Milton's, shortcomings when it comes to being a consistent quarterback at the Power 5 level. Obviously, he's got more arm talent than anybody in the country, more arm strength, but the placement, the power control, that really doesn't seem to be getting better. Obviously, he has great games, but then you look at other games and you're like, what the hell is this? So that going against, one of the most consistent teams in the country this year in Missouri, who was on the brink of an upset with Georgia. They play tough opponents well. I'm rolling with Missouri. I'm just way more comfortable in that team as a whole than I am the roller coaster of Tennessee.
All right, next game, Ole Miss versus Georgia. Georgia barely pulled off a 9-point win against Missouri, and Ole Miss pulled off a 3-point victory against A&M. I like Jackson Dart. Carson Beck is great as well, but who's the better quarterback? Well, Jackson Dart. He's been there longer, so I can't put a freshman that started 9 games over Jackson Dart, who's a junior, who's played in Lane Kiffin system for 3 years. So I can't really say that just yet. Carson Beck will get better, but it's hard for me to put a freshman that played 9 games over somebody who's been in the system for 3 years. Jackson Dart has been very consistent under the Lane Kiffin system of offense. I like Junkins, the running back. He's very great. He could be a potential draft pick next season if he wants to come out. Brock Bowers is still out with injury. In this game, I'm still going to take Georgia. Their defense is a lot better. I don't think their defense is going to give a lot of passing plays and touchdowns than they did against Missouri. It's all about matchups. As much as I like Ole Miss, it's very hard for me to really pick Ole Miss to beat Georgia. I just don't know. That Ole Miss will have to play a very perfect game to beat Georgia, but I don't damn see that. So I'm going to go take Georgia until they lose. So Ole Miss probably will make it close, but I think that Georgia defensive line is going to get all over Jackson Dart, just kind of like what Alabama did earlier this year.
Yeah, this was definitely the closest I was in this week's slate to picking an upset. I really wanted to pick Ole Miss here, but then I remembered I also picked Ole Miss against Bama. That didn't work out, and I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to say that Georgia is still a better football team than Bama, top to bottom. So I'm not going to go with Ole Miss here. It was super tempting. I'm rolling with Georgia. And, it's for all the same reasons. I acknowledge that Dart is a great quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC, but he's also facing, a Georgia defense that has been a pipeline to the NFL since Kirby has, reestablished this team as a powerhouse in college football. And the train's not stopping. It didn't stop in this last year's draft. It's not going to stop this year either. It's a loaded team. As much as I wanted to take the upset here with Ole Miss, I'm going to roll with Georgia. It's boring, I know. And this game has the potential to be boring too, be a defensive battle here. But I'm going to roll with Georgia pretty comfortably, I think. I've gotten burned already taking Ole Miss versus Bama. I'm not doing it again.
All right, next game, primetime game, Texas versus TCU. Texas wants to stay up in the top 7. This is a game they must win. They lost this game last year, I think. It was like 17-10. TCU beat them at home. Quinn Ewers is day-to-day with that shoulder. He can throw now, but I'm not sure if he's going to play. He's just day-to-day, according to Steve Sarkisian. Malik Murphy, the quarterback that played? He was okay against Kansas State, obviously, but they almost lost. In this game, despite TCU, they don't have the same team they had last year. They lost 4 of the last 5. The last time they won the game was almost a month ago. They beat BYU 44-11. Every other game they played, they got blown up by Kansas State 41-3. They got blown up by Iowa State 27-14, and then lost to West Virginia by 3 points. This is hard because if Quinn Ewers doesn't play, they will easily beat TCU. But despite TCU being 4-5, I don't think with Sonny Dykes, the third-year head coach, I don't think they'll just end their season like that. Now, Chad Morris is replacing, Max Duggan, obviously. They don't have the same team, don't have the same offensive coordinator and all that stuff. I'm going to take TCU just because the way Texas has played with them dominating, and then they almost will lose. This might be a game where Texas gets exposed, and gets knocked out the top 10. Despite TCU struggles, they're at home. I'm going to go ahead and take TCU. The last games they lost, they were on the road. They're at home. I'm very, very confident they can match up with Texas, even though the defense is suspect. I'm going to take TCU for the upset. I'm just not sure if Quinn Ewers is going to play, if Malik Murphy is going to be consistent. I'm going with TCU.
All right. Well, this is going to be, I'd imagine, the only game that we're different on this week. I'm rolling with Texas. I've mentioned it. I think that they're back. I think Malik is going to be a hot commodity in the transfer portal this year to be a starter somewhere else. Obviously, last game wasn't his best game, but he's been winning games for Texas in, Quinn's absence. So I believe in him. This TCU team they lost 20 guys from last year's roster, including a star quarterback, including a star wide receiver, and a lot of their O-line, a lot of the D-line. This team lost a lot of guys. And I think that's what got people sucked into the hype at the beginning of the year when basically everyone was betting on TCU versus Colorado when it comes to, the sports books. It was heavily leaning towards TCU. I think people were sucked in too much that they made it to the national championship last year. It's not even close to the same team. I think just Texas is better top to bottom. So I'm rolling with Texas.
All right, next game, Florida versus LSU. Jaden Daniels suffered that hit on Saturday against, obviously, Alabama, which a lot of people were making a lot of excuses about that. Oh, he knocked him out the game and all that stuff. Was a football hit. Now, Jaden Daniels did hit concussion protocol Saturday night. He hasn't really practiced. He hit concussion protocol. You have Gary Newsomer, who is a sophomore. He might start against Florida if Jaden Daniels does not play. Now, Graham Mertz, he still has 2 interceptions of the year, but Florida did lose to Arkansas in overtime, which Arkansas did change the offensive coordinator, and they're not very good. In this game, I'm going to take LSU. Very confident in their defense. Defensive line, not their secondary, obviously, but I'm not sure what type of offense Florida really runs. It really confuses me. I'm not sure if they want to be run first, pass first. I'm not sure. They confuse me in a lot of different ways. I'm going to go ahead and take LSU to win this one, and I don't think Billy Napier is the correct coach for Florida. I just don't think so, and I'll be telling these Florida fans, this is not the Swamp Kings documentary. This is not, the Tim Tebow days. So I'm going to go ahead and take Florida. LSU.
I'm taking LSU. I'll give Scott, our guy here, some shine. He's taking the Gators on the upset. Scott?
Whoa.
Scott, I'm going to let you know. I think you're going to be disappointed, brother. I think you're going to be disappointed. So here is the basis of what I'm saying. I believe that the Florida offense can compete against the LSU defense. I do think they can.
Yes, they can.
They have 2 great running backs that they don't know how to use. It's heavy one game, it's light the next. It's just not a consistent run game when they have 2 studs. Obviously, Mertz hasn't turned the ball over. That a ton of credit goes to him for that. But this is a secondary that doesn't play around, and this isn't the best passing game that they've seen this year or are going to see in the future with LSU. So I'm going to roll with LSU here regardless of any quarterback changes coming up. But yeah, I don't think that Scott's going to be super happy with this one. I hope you didn't put too much money on it, Scott. I hope you didn't put too much money on it.
You probably did. And you might want to take that money back and get you a refund. Next game, our final game, I guess, of the week. USC versus Oregon is a late kickoff, 10:30 at night. It's when you have probably about 13 beers in your system by then. Oregon versus USC. Caleb Williams versus Bo Nix. They just fired a defensive coordinator. They'll make some adjustments. I'm not sure if the defense would slightly improve because Oregon offense is just dominant in all three ways. It's not really much to say. I don't appreciate the crybaby and Caleb Williams. I think he's very, very immature, especially what he did at the press conference. He said he wanted to chill with his dogs and cuddle. How about you win a game and then say that? I guess he was just very unprofessional in the way he said he didn't want to sit down and talk. He just wanted to stand up and is just walking around. He's very nervous. I get it. I get it as a passionate, I know you ain't betting no $45.
God, what are we doing, dude? What are we doing?
$45?
God.
Wait, hold on, wait. 55 to 21? No.
God.
You on that stuff. You're on that stuff. You not sit here and say that they're going to no. I'm going to explain why. USC just fired a defensive coordinator. Bo Nix is better quarterback than Caleb Williams. I'm taking Bo Nix over Caleb Williams in the NFL right now. If I'm the NFL GM, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Bo Nix. Ladies and gentlemen, Oregon has the best offense in the Pac-12. The best offense. Did you not see what they did to Colorado earlier? I picked Colorado to beat the numbers wrong. Did you not see what they did to Utah? They're good offensively and defensively under second-year head coach Dan Lanning, who's brought in that Georgia type system against, what he brought from Georgia, that type of system in Oregon. I understand that the running back is out this week. That don't mean nothing. They got the tight ends, they got the wide receivers and all this stuff. I get that. I'm taking Oregon. Until USC improves on defense, how in the world you go with 52 points to Washington and then expect them to say, oh, we're going to hold Oregon to 21 points? No, I don't see it. I'm going to go ahead and take Oregon. I just don't see how USC can beat them. This will be the worst team that USC will have this year.
I agree. So my biggest thing with the prediction is exactly what you just said. The fact that their offense is going to put up 55 against this Oregon defense, who has been phenomenal all year. And then this USC defense holding the number one offense in the Pac-12 and a top 3 offense in the country in Oregon to 21 points. And I understand the running back is a huge loss. So don't get me wrong. I understand where you're coming from with that. But this is not an offense that has to go through the running back. And it's not an offense that just has one decent running back. They're deep at every single position. We've done the Oregon recruiting video. If you wanted to check that out, I've gone into their depth chart when it comes to that as well. This is a deep team at most positions, and that is not limited to running back. So when it comes to USC, the turmoil they're going through, the staff changes, the inconsistencies, the bad losses, and then looking at how Oregon has been, flying this year, they need big wins like this to stay in the college football playoff conversation, and I think they get it this week.
Colorado versus Arizona, we did pick Arizona to win that game, obviously, and then what you have? Georgia Tech and Clemson. I give you Clemson on that one. I hate to say it, but I mean they beat Notre Dame, and without Will Shipley and 10 other guys being hurt, Phil Mafia did beat us as far as my second favorite team, Notre Dame. They did beat us, so unfortunately, I will have to take Clemson just because their defensive line is better. I still don't trust the secondary, but Georgia Tech has had some impressive wins this year. They're still rebuilding, though. So.
I think it's big. I think it's big that this game is home for Clemson. I think if it was at Georgia Tech, it would be, a little bit more 50-50, but I'm going to roll with Clemson as well. Vanderbilt at South Carolina, I can guarantee you this, brother. I will not watch one damn second of that game. I am not going to watch one snap of that football game.
South Carolina has been very disappointing, and Vanderbilt still sucks. They don't even have a stadium.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with South Carolina. I'm gonna roll with my man, Baby Beamer, Shane Beamer down there.
He broke
But
his
yeah,
foot.
that's not a game that you're circling on the
Please
calendar.
don't waste your time and watch that game. Please do not waste your time
Yeah.
and watch that game. Here's the games I recommend watching: Virginia Tech, Boston College, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, USC, Miami, Florida State, Texas, TCU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee. Those are the potential games I will be watching. Alabama, Kentucky as well. Those are the games that are worth your time. Do not sit there and watch Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. Please. I will take a nap rather than watch Vanderbilt play South Carolina. I would just go to bed. Like it's just no point. I get it, it's football, but until these teams improve or until Vanderbilt gets a stadium, I'm not watching them. Missouri sucked as well for a very long time, but they have now improved. Now we're talking about Missouri. We said we'll take Washington over Utah, by the way. But this is it for Lambo and Massimo Sports. Tomorrow will be the recruiting episodes. We'll surprise you with whatever teams we're wanting to do. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Totem Pole Nation. If you need your merch, go to totempolenation.com. Thank you, Silent Sports Network. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We will catch you tomorrow for the recruiting episodes and top 5 teams after week 9. I will be back because I got to make sure that list is fluid. All right. I did say it was the worst list of all time, but that was for entertainment purposes. I just didn't agree with the damn list. But we will see y'all tomorrow, and y'all have a